Moving on to our next panel discussion. The discussion focuses on upgrading project operations, maintenance, and tolling. The panel will discuss opportunities for O&M, reviving interest in the BOT space, HAM strategies for the future, and long-term viability of TOT bundles. I invite our moderator, Mr. Anand Kulkarni, Director, CRISIL Ratings, to please join me on stage. Based in Mumbai, he leads CRISIL's rating assignments in road, construction, and real estate sectors. He closely engages with top management of rated issuers as well as various stakeholders to present CRISIL ratings opinions and educate on the rating criteria. Mr. Kulkarni has around 14 years of experience, out of which more than 11 years is in the field of credit rating. Prior to CRISIL, he has worked with ICRA in corporate ratings. Welcome, sir. I would now like to invite our panelists who would be joining Mr. Kulkarni for this session. Please welcome Mr. Anshumali Srivastava, Chief General Manager, Regional Officer, Mumbai, NHAI. With an experience of 28 years in infrastructure, he has served in MORTH and NHAI under various positions and is presently posted as CGM cum Regional Officer, NHAI Mumbai, looking after various NHAI works in Maharashtra. He has worked on various Bharatmala projects and is instrumental in building of 4,000-kilometer concrete roads in new national highways in Maharashtra. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Vijay Agarwal, Executive Director, Equirus Capital. Mr. Agarwal brings to Equirus over 20 years of experience in infrastructure, pharma, healthcare, and IT sectors. He has played a key role in leading business process restructuring initiatives, along with concluding various successful M&A transactions and fundraising activities successfully, leading to elevated financial gains and enhanced system parameters. Mr. Vikas Sharma, Director, Genesis Infra Project Consultants. Mr. Sharma has over 19 years' experience in executing intricate and demanding assignments in the fields of road. Under his leadership, Genesis is among government-approved contractors for civil and road infra projects and is implementing consultant of Thane Municipal Corporation, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, Surat Municipal Corporation, and Maharashtra PWD for stone matrix asphalt. And Dr. Zafar Khan, COO, Highway Concessions. Dr. Khan has more than 19 years of experience in the construction and operations of infrastructure across 6 countries. In his current role, he is responsible for the operation and maintenance of 5 tolling and 2 annuity road assets under the governance framework of an international fund. He is passionate about technology and its applications to bring positive changes in the operations of assets and to provide international experience to asset users. I now request Mr. Kulkarni to take this discussion forward. You would have 40 minutes, sir, for the discussion, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the time check as well. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anand Kulkarni, Director, CRISIL Ratings. Me and my team closely monitor the road sector. The road sector has been identified as one of the most important sectors by the government, and the same is also reflected in various policy supports or various debottlenecking measures being taken by the government, also by increased budgetary allocations and investments in the sector. Furthermore, we have recently seen the announcement under National Monetization Pipeline, which hinges critically on the road sector asset monetization, wherein the plan is that the target is to have around 1.6 lakh crore funds generated over the next 4 years, only from the road sector asset monetization, which forms around 27% of overall NMP plan. So road sector certainly plays an important role in overall monetization plan of the government. Now coming to the specific performance of the sector in the recent past, I would like to highlight some overviews and then I'll move on to the panel discussion. So here we have seen on the awarding and execution side, despite the pandemic, awarding remained pretty healthy. Overall highways for MORTH plus NHAI awarding was around 11,000 kilometers, out of which NHAI was around 4,800 kilometers. And we expect the awarding to remain healthy this year as well. The execution touched all-time high at around 36 kilometers per day last year, and this is likely to grow at a healthy pace going forward as well. The awarding modes, we have seen HAM and EPC remaining the primary modes, wherein the overall highways MORTH plus NHAI, around 75% was awarded through EPC mode, while for NHAI, HAM remains the primary mode, wherein around 55% of awarding was through HAM. There has been some efforts on increasing BOT toll road project awarding as well, but currently we expect in the near term this is going to remain minimal in terms of overall pie. We have seen relaxation in bidding norms by the ministry, and that has increased number of mid-sized players coming into play. And hence, from our perspective, we believe monitoring the execution and quality of these players is going to be an important part going forward. The EPC players' performance we have seen remaining pretty healthy, backed by good awarding as well as healthy execution, and we believe good double-digit growth for these EPC players for next 2 years. And on the monetization part, as I already touched upon, remains a critical part. NHAI also understands that, and they have already come up with plan to monetize through InvIT and TOT route. And if successful, this can play a very big role in terms of taking the future ambitious investments in the sector forward. So with this overview of the sector, I would now like to start the panel discussion. We have an esteemed panel today for the discussion. And I'd like to start the discussion by asking Mr. Srivastava on his perspective on awarding in the sector. So as we have seen good amount of awarding happening last year. What is your view? I mean, how was the H1 in the current year? How do you see H2? And going forward, what is your expectation on awarding on the road sector, sir?
Thank you. Like you have already mentioned, we did very well in the last year, even though COVID was there on the peak. So last year we achieved about 10,300 kilometers of award. And this year our target is for 12,000 kilometers. And I'm glad to share with you that in H1 part, we have reached 4,300, and we are pretty sure that balance 6,000 also will be reaching and will be surpassing our target. So there is no doubt in this, and we'll be 100% achieving our target. And since you only ask for award, but simultaneously figure comes for construction. So construction also we are doing pretty well, and this year target is again 12,000 kilometers, and we are sure that we will be achieving that. So far we have reached about 4,500 kilometers, but as everyone knows that first part is affected by rains largely, and this year in large part of our country we had more than highest rains in 40 years. So that has affected slightly our speed, but we will be achieving our target.
Sure. No, thanks. That's heartening to know. In fact, last year, Q4, we have seen 60 kilometers per day being constructed. So I'm sure we'll be achieving our targets. Now, coming to the specific HAM section, because we have to understand that is going to be an important part or cog in the wheel for the sector. And my next question is to Mr. Sharma here. So on the HAM side, what is your perspective? I mean, largely the execution performance is better than what historically the sector has seen. But what is your view on the execution in HAM space and also on the challenges? I mean, on ROW availability, have those challenges come down? Or how easy or difficult it is to execute this de-scoping and de-linking clauses as a part of HAM? Because those are important clauses in HAM. Can you give some perspective on this, sir?
Hello, everyone. With the new government and with the Honorable Minister Mr. Nitin Gadkari taking over the charge of MoRTH, the scenario has changed a lot in HAM and BOT, everything. So what I think is it has become easy for utility spaces and ROW both, because the clauses have upgraded in the year 2016 or so, I think so. And only the operational issues are there while implementing in HAM. That is the issue, yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you for that perspective, sir. And a related point, I mean, when we are talking, to Mr. Khan, my next question is, so, sir, an important part when we look at HAM and the recent development is, as I touched upon in my overview, is the entry of small and mid-sized players. And probably we are also seeing aggressive bidding in the space. The premiums have come down as compared to what it was, let's say, 2-3 years back. So what is your view on the competition? Do you think it is going to impact the timelines and quality of stretches? What should be done to rationalize if there are any aggressive biddings in that?
I think HAM, as far as construction of road is concerned, is very good model. So construction for sure will be faster now. Since a lot of money is coming upfront to the bidder, it is easier for them to construct. But if you see the recent bidding, even I will quote one of the bidder, not naming him, he has bidded that O&M period, there's a minus requirement. So you can take money from the bidder for the O&M period, which means that the appetite of the current bidder is not to hold asset for a long time. They want to construct and then get out of the asset and sell it to somebody else. So, which automatically means that, okay, yes, you will build road faster, but ultimately, how long India is going to construct roads? You are already at 4%, and somewhere you will stop and you will maintain these roads. And if your long-term vision is not to provide a better road to the people, and still we think that let's construct more and more and more and more, at some moment of time, you will stop. And then you will stuck into this dilemma. Okay, road is constructed, but there's no money even in the whole financial model for O&M. So probably for construction, HAM is an excellent model, but for large spectrum of operation and maintenance, it will be difficult for authorities to keep the maintenance upkeep and give a road user experience as equivalent to international roads. That's my feel.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. And another important part of HAM, and my next question is to Mr. Agrawal here. Sir, financing community or lenders' interest plays an important role in building infrastructure. So what is your perspective in terms of lender communities' comfort on HAM model, both greenfield assets as well as refinancing of these HAM projects? And also, do you think with competition increasing, will it be equally easy for the small and mid-sized players to get this financial closure done? Or will you see any challenges in that part?
So, I think HAM per se is a very good model because ultimately the payment is guaranteed by NHAI, which is a AAA rated entity. Initially, lenders have burnt hands on the BOT model. So they were reluctant to fund HAM projects, and many of the initial bidders, even though they were category A developers, they had faced challenges for HAM financial closures. But now SBI has taken a lead that time, and I should say a private lender, HDFC, has taken a big lead, and they started financing, created a model where developer invests his equity and a project is already constructed up to a 25 to 30% stage, and NHAI money has already been invested in the project, the 40% grant, and they start disbursing. So they had already done the de-risking. Basically 90% of the land is available. Post 90%, anything is not available, it is automatically de-scoped. So they had de-risked the project. I think that lenders have learned and developed a viable financing model for the projects. Now, when we come to the developer community, yes, lenders are concerned about the aggressive biddings made by a few of the developers, where I will not name, but one place, it was a TPC was like 1800 crores, the bid was 1200 crores. I think NHAI should reject such type of bids because it's not possible. And I think we should not go with L1 because then the project will suffer, basically. But yes, lenders are looking for upfront equity to be invested by the developers in the project. It is not like during the construction, I will earn and invest in the project. So that way, small and medium developers who doesn't have a cash on their balance sheet will face challenges. Even the lenders are asking, boss, how you will fund the equity? Show me the equity. If you are not having, how it will come? Don't show me that during the EPC I will earn. Because lenders also know the HAM doesn't have so much profit of 30-40%. You will have a 10 to 15% reasonable margins, which as an industry standard you should earn, basically. So, yeah. But people are facing challenges. Many of the HAM projects have faced delays. And the NHAI has given the extension. Because NHAI still knows that, but this filtering needs to be done, basically, on this.
Sure. So one follow-up on that to you, same, sir. With this, I mean, we have seen let's say, aggressive O&M bidding, getting margin squeezed at the start of the project. So do you think the intention or appetite for investors to go for acquisition of HAM projects is going to get impacted because of this?
I think investors are very clear. They have their own assumptions of O&M, major maintenance for the road, and then they arrive at cash flow based on that. Yeah, there is a negative point which has happened for the industry is that the interest rate when they had bidded was bank rate was 6.75%. Now it is only 4.25%. So their cash flows have really reduced from that perspective. So that has a negative impact. But any bidder, any investor is coming on the cash flow discounting model. So if what will happen, this will entail is the developer has to reduce his EPC cost to leave sufficient cash in the SPV for discounted by the investor to take over. If there is no cash, the assets cannot be monetized and it will lie on the balance sheet of the developer as a liability, which has happened in the BOT side also.
Right. It is just equity upfront, whatever you brought in, you have to adjust when you are selling.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
because you already upfronted it.
So I think investors community is very clear on that.
Sure, sure. No, I think that is a good perspective here. Thank you for that. Now coming to another important model, that is BOT, and my next question is to Mr. Srivastava here. NHAI has been trying to make BOT again more attractive. I'm talking about BOT toll projects. So, I mean, what is the expectation in terms of overall pie? Do you see BOT toll awarding increasing to a large extent? And again, I mean, we have been talking about lenders' interest, and we have seen a lot of awareness from lenders in funding BOT toll projects. So do you think that is an area, something that can be done to improve that interest there?
Yeah, like last 2-3 years, we were having BOT projects, BOT toll projects rather at 4% or 5% of our overall award. And this year onwards, like industry and economy is growing, people have confidence. And basic problem with the earlier BOT toll projects were there, mainly they were brownfield. So there were more expectation of, hindrances during the project execution cycle. Now we are coming up with several, greenfield expressways, 22 are lined up. And there during the greenfield project execution, the risk or delay perception which may occur, that is very much minimized. And moreover, we are going only for bidding when we acquire 90% and clearances are available. And for balance 10%, we have very clear policy. If we are not able to provide you, we will de-scope. We will not hold your COD or we will not hold your annuity, and we will go ahead with your award or completion certification. So with this clear de-risking of that whole project, BOT toll model is going to be, very attractive model in another 2-3 years. Like in an IP, all these expresses majorly will be on BOT toll. And in Maharashtra also we have recently, invited bids for Satara Kagal, that is on BOT toll model. So hopefully good reaction will be there. So the de-risking of that whole based on the industry interaction, then feedback what we got from lenders. We had very close meetings here in Mumbai with bankers, I think 2-3 times in 2-3 years. So all those things have now been built into MCA. Now we have given a traffic band rather than target traffic one particular date. Then we have, linked our interest rate with MCLR rather than only bank rate. So all those feedbacks which industry gave to us, we have modified our MCA. So BOT toll perception from 5%, it will gradually increase. And I think by the time of 24-25, we will again touch 20% or something.
Right. Good to know that, sir. In fact, that is going to be important from the country as well as NHAI's perspective to increase that awarding. And NHAI has been one of the bodies which are taking feedback and swiftly acting on it that we have seen. So good to know that part. I'm just to play devil's advocate here, and my next question is to Mr. Khan. As sir touched upon, we are building a lot of greenfield corridors in the country. There are, again, dedicated freight corridors which are getting commissioned. So this is going to be a competition for existing stretches. Wanted to understand from you, how should a developer or investor evaluate the viability of these toll road projects in the long term? The concessions are pretty long, but if some competing corridors come in, your estimation can go for a toss. So what should be kept in mind, how to mitigate these challenges?
I think the concept of corridor traffic has to come in now. Long time we are still struggling and just doing the traffic survey of the project only. And we don't have any data as a central depository with the NHI or MORTH or anybody on corridor traffic. And we just do 7 days traffic survey and maybe 1 day or 3 days OD, and then we decide that, okay, this much traffic will grow, et cetera, will happen. But now, and again, competing roads, the definition of competing roads is never go in a good way with NHI. So most of the time you will lose the case, and there is no coordination between the central agency and state agencies, and you built a national highway, and after 3 years, a local member of parliament pushes for a state highway, which is just bypassing everything, and you're screwed completely. So I think now there is a solution. The only thing that government has to open up a policy. Now we have 97, 98% FASTag of the vehicle. And if the corridor data is made publicly available, then bidding can be really, really good. Earlier it used to be available. Now somehow I think NHI or MORTH has identified this trick and they have not made it public. So if the corridor FASTag data is available on public portal, like anywhere in the world, if you go, this corridor traffic is available for the public, then you can easily know what is the OD distribution of the traffic, what is the main traffic, what is the commodity movement. Everything can be very easily transpired. As on date, since it is not been open to the public, probably you are still depending on your own competency around corridor traffic, the OD distribution, maybe major goods distribution in that corridor, and then work upon it. As well as look at the master plan of the state, looking at the political stability of that state, looking at the corridor economical development of that area, and then go for your best judge. But still it is all calculation only, which can completely go haywire if state decided to build another highway close by. But I think FASTag data can be really, really good if it is made public.
Sure. No, I think that is important, and thank you for that. Please, sir.
Like Mr. Khan has requested or maybe suggested that FASTag data may be made public. See, FASTag was made with a purpose that is going to be primary device for collection of toll. There are privacy issues. We are bound by certain other regulations which are beyond NHI or our department jurisdiction. But like corridor traffic collection, NHI used to do before conceptualization of that project for 7 days and 2 seasons. And that data is made public available. And the DPR, whole DPR rather we share with at the time of bidding. And then other than that, there are bidders or maybe investors. Satellite data is available. I won't name, but that is freely available from many resources worldwide. And people are using that data to actually know, like shipping movement is largely monitored by, people who play stock market, crude prices and other things. They take satellite imagery every day and then see how many ships are, going to touch China, how many coming out from Middle East. Similarly, I have met 2-3 persons. So these disruptive technologies, like the earlier session was there, innovation and disruptive technologies. You can say that we can have a 365, 24/7 video recording at toll plaza, and that can be shared and made public. But there are other issues, privacy issues and so many other security concerns. We can't do that. Maybe if government or somebody takes a later on decision based on your feedback, it may be done. But there is no use. Having a huge data with you also is a problem. You need to know the data only that much is relevant to you. So if you have a 2 times survey of 7 days with OD and other things, these are pretty good enough. Your other concern that maybe some other development plan of the state government comes after the road is being commissioned, that has some effect, but maybe that MCA which was used during that award has a definition which every other bidder also, took into account while going. So that is all the BOT is. You have to take some risk at the time of bidding.
But sir, my point was not on exactly on that. Say, for example, I have a road, point A to point B, and there is a diversion of the main corridor 350 kilometers away from that, and my 60% of commercial traffic got diverted from that point. Neither it will be covered as a competing clause, neither it will be covered in any other clause supporting us. So my argument to this was that I understand security clauses and the concern. Whatever eventually word is adopting, India will eventually adopt that. And that's what happened in case of FASTag. Initially, everybody said that when Akhilesh first drafted it to the secretary, he said it will take at least 6 years. And then in 1 year, from 26, 23%, we hit 98%. And what we are expecting is nothing but VRN data and OD, nothing beyond that. And VRN and OD will give you everything required for the corridor, and your bidding process will be very accurate. And you will not go into litigation. That will be easier for everyone, and it will eventually happen. Because that's how the whole world is happening.
Sure.
This will take a feedback, and maybe you can suggest the way so
Sure,
that
sir,
we have to respect privacy as well as other things. Now we are getting demand from several, other agencies, and industry is reacting to that. We are asking, we are getting many requests from police, from GST, from income tax. You tell whether this container has passed or not. We are stuck. We have to consult our legal team to share that information.
Sure.
Absolutely,
Sure.
sir, absolutely. It will take some time to open up.
Correct. So, yeah, I mean, respect both the views, and I'm sure there will be a middle path that will be found. I'm sure the technology is going to play an important role as well going forward. So, we'll come to a more predictable environment slowly and gradually, it seems. So, coming to another important aspect in the sector, that is the monetization. And it is going to be an important area for NHAI as well as private parties. So my next question is to Mr. Agrawal here. I wanted to understand, I mean, NHAI has been focusing on this monetization part, and that is also going to support the overall investment that is going to happen going forward. InvIT and TOT are the primary routes those have been identified. So how do you see monetization potential in the country for NHAI asset pool that is already there? And how about the investor interest and appetite for these pools?
I think NHAI has a good asset base for monetization, and there is a good investor interest to invest in these assets. But it has 2-3 issues which we need to address, basically. The first issue, the investor wants independence. See, today, understand this business is a low-yield business, and people work on the trust, basically. So if you globally are RIT, because it's called as a RIT, India we call it a InvIT and RIT, but these are generally managed either from the developer side or from the financial investor side by the independent board, independent professional team, basically, where the sponsor doesn't have an impact to influence a decision, basically. So I think NHAI, if I say NHAI, they had done a really good job by bringing professionals as a CEO on the investment side and O&M side also as a CEO as a professional people, and they are trying to create that. But I think even NHAI is also facing this issue of independence of these investment managers. Because ultimately, this is a trust, basically what valuations, what discounting, and see, this is a hard-earned money. It's a pensioner's money, basically. You can't risk with that money. It's not meant for an equity type of instrument. It is more meant for a fixed income instrument, which is giving a higher yield than the fixed deposits or government bonds, basically. But still, it has a safety, basically. So if I say domestic market, India has around 75 lakh crore in the fixed deposit. Okay, so that's the size of investment pool. I'm not talking of a stock market or other investment. We are having a domestic capital. I don't need an international capital to fund my infrastructure development. If I'm able to create a suitable structure domestically, my domestic money will take care of my all infra investment needs, basically. So that's given. Now, when we come to the toll roads per se, see, toll roads, the models are built on a traffic and WPI growth. Okay. Here the investor doesn't know today that what will be my yield. It's a projection. And internationally, rates are always a fixed, like annuity. I know, or HAM, I know this is a fixed money I will get. This is a discounting, and this is a net flow which will come to you. But in toll, it becomes an equity instrument. That is the biggest challenge we are facing in toll. If you see IndiGrid or PGCIL InvIT, they are doing well. Yes. But if you see IRB, it's not doing well. And I think the NHAI InvIT is also facing the same challenge because investor is asking, show me the cash today, what rate you are discounting, and give me. Another way of doing this, I think it's my personal opinion, we can make a partnership, okay, investor and NHAI. So what we can do is that, okay, we say a threshold. Today, if suppose a toll road is, whatever it is earning, I take, then I guarantee that this much is a minimum return, which is given. Above this return, whatever is coming, is a split between the investor and NHAI. So NHAI doesn't look for a higher valuation today, but they are able to monetize. Basically, they are able to raise resources without raising a debt, basically, and still paying a lower than debt, what they pay, and sharing. So as a investor is happy, NHAI is happy, because you're not risking the capital. Because what has happened with IRB, they projected like 11% revenue growth in their model. That is not happening. That's why the valuation of that is gone down completely. But it has eroded the investor capital. Investors are asking the merchant bankers, boss, what product you are given? You had promised me that this will give this return. It's not coming. Where is my money? And that has the real impact because after IRB InvIT, no new InvIT has come. At least IndiGrid has created that confidence, and then the 3 successful REITs have really, and a PGCIL has created a confidence of investors, retail investors, even the institutional investor. Ultimately, if I say, who are the investors? These are insurance companies, pension funds, or debt mutual funds. Who are the investors in these products? They need a fixed income. These are all fixed income investors. They are not equity investors. I think if we get this mathematics right and redraft the policy, I think that will go.
Sure. No, I think interesting perspective, and InvIT as a market anyway is evolving. We have come some way from the start of it. I'm sure there'll be new models that will get developed here in that. So you have any comments at that?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, like earlier also we have said that NHAI is one of the organization which reacts to public demands or feedbacks very quickly. InvIT as a model for NHAI has really started from the last year. And this is, we are evolving stage. And this is also a novice model taken in the maybe first time in India. So like the comments which industry is having, we are open to that. And like we have brought in professionals. So interaction, virtual session, or maybe in-person meeting, or a submission of your demands can be there. We are we'll be like when we have modified our MCA at least more than 10 times.
Yes.
So InvIT also, whatever suggestions are coming, maybe some people may have a different view. We are ready to evaluate each and every suggestion and then come up with a model which is, suiting to industry as well as our mission and aim. Sure. So maybe future we will evolve better.
No, absolutely. Heartening to know that. So in fact, as I was saying, NHAI has that collaborative approach. I'm sure it is going to go a long way.
I think one thing I should say in I had seen the both side of the NHAI, and one way where people suffered because the clearances were not there. And literally, if I say a first generation of the EPC companies, they died.
Yes.
From both the sides. Their side also, there were a lot of mistakes. And one regulatory support which was not there. But now, the regulatory support is in the other extreme.
Absolutely.
I had been interacting on one or a couple of transactions, and the kind of support which I had got from the NHAI was marvelous.
Sure.
So I think that change is there.
So good to know that. So thank you for that. So another important aspect, and this is to Mr. Khan here, is TOT. When we talk about monetization of NHI, it's InvIT plus TOT. So wanted to understand your perspective. I mean, ideally, TOT should be a good route for investor with, I mean, almost minimal construction risk, a ready asset, good long concession availability. But what are the challenges that investors may be facing? And what is your sense on investors' interest, maybe overseas investor interest in TOT as a model? Because there also we have seen some changes happening from the first bundle to now.
I think for that, if one should see the history, how TOT started. So I think 7-8 years back, all the investment team was pushing NHI to open up policy and go for long-term investment because of two purposes. One, monetize the asset. Second, bring about the international O&M standard in India. These were two main aspects when the TOT was envisaged. And the first bundle did fetch a huge amount of money, and the period was 30 years. And why 30 years? Because there was a consistent demand from the investment fraternity that we need at least 2 churn. So at least twice I should be able to rotate the equity and bring about the changes. When TOT 1 happened, then second flopped, I think. Third happened, and now it has been, there was a lot of pressure government was getting from the local developers that because of the size of the bundle, locals are unable to participate. So please reduce the size, and that pressure has worked. Now the size has been reduced and it is 100 kilometers of road only. With that, there are two problems happening. One, of course, the local developers are participating more enthusiastically, more than probably understanding the whole NPV concept of long-term asset holding, and providing upfront good money to NHI, which is good for NHI for sure. Yes. And then you see the financial closure of these developers. It takes almost 9 to 10 months or a year even to close the deal before they can take over the asset, which is probably a learning for NHI to understand. So yes, from shorter vision, NHI is gaining for sure. You're getting good competition, and bid size is reduced. Your number of bidders have from 7 to 8 has gone to 20, and then you're getting good money. But all the TOT current bidders, just after finishing the EPC, will come back to the market again and will sell their asset. They will not hold it for a long time. So if I reply this as a road user, that ultimately after 4-5 years, NHI will stop constructing more roads because there's already enough roads, then you will not have good operation and maintenance because there's not enough money left in that. And as I explained, the TOT model, all these investment models largely work on the operating cost. If you have less operating cost, you can give upfront money. So most of the local developers don't put enough money for operation and maintenance, and they still see this as an EPC opportunity that next 20 years, I have 2,000 crores of bitumen work available to me, and they put it upfront. So that's my input, and probably there will be, of course, we will be still interested to bid, and we'll be still trying to compete with the local developers to bid in the market, and we will win for sure. But for a long-term perspective, for India as an industry, it's not a healthy scenario. It will get adjusted in next 3 to 4 years.
Sure,
I would like to add here.
Please, please.
I think Jafar has made a very right point. Whenever we are building a road, the O&M cost is always underestimated. If you see the HAM projects, the bidding, but I think the lenders have learned and they are compensating that in the model, financial model during the financial closure. And they are putting a normal industry standards by way of TV study and all that. So they are not taking their bidder's cost of O&M. So that way they are taking. But what we had seen in the past, the BOT, what has happened to the roads, developer didn't have money, they had not maintained the roads, and it was a bad mouthing for NHAI and everybody. I think we should be very cautious. I think whenever such type of bids are coming, it should be straightway rejected. It should never be accepted. We should not go for L1. We should have a basic minimum standards also. And we know if somebody is not putting that money for that in their bid itself. So we understand their intention. and we should reject so that we will be able to maintain the quality of road. See, once there is a deterioration in the quality, rebuilding takes money and time. And I had seen when I had done multiple transactions and where the conditions, I had to budget a double amount for the major maintenance, immediate maintenance. Then we had normalized in our model for the next time. My investor said, boss, I will not buy this. There was no deal. And the daily NHA is issuing a notices, but developer can't do anything.
Right. No, good perspective, sir. Thanks a lot for that. And I'm mindful of the time, so I'll just squeeze in. Yeah, one last question I'll squeeze in and I'll close after that. So this is to Mr. Agrawal, Mr. Sharma here. And since we're talking about O&M cost, I wanted to understand your perspectives on, because O&M, as we discussed, plays an important role in the long-term maintenance of roads. So can you highlight some of the good new technologies those can be implemented or that can help maintaining quality of road as well as efficiencies in the longer term, if you can help on that?
There are many new technologies, and government is positively bringing all the new technologies and giving free hand to the contractors and developers to maintain or to make the roads. But in my opinion, stone matrix asphalt is the best technology for India now. Now presently, the NHA is doing Delhi-Baroda Super Expressway on stone matrix asphalt. Complete 737 kilometers is on stone matrix asphalt. The technology is 50 years old, and in India it is recently adopted. And zero maintenance for at least 7 to 10 years. So I think investors would be more interested in this technology.
Sure.
So we are promoting that technology, my company. And we have made an Indian product. The cellulose fibers which are made in India, previously it was imported from Europe or America. So we can use made in India product for our roads.
Sure.
This is what.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. So, I mean, we would ideally like to continue this discussion, but due to paucity of time, do we have time for Q&A of the audience, or?
From the audience? One question from the audience. Okay.
That helps the cause anyway, so thank you for that. So, as we are just about out of time, I would like to thank all the panelists for their insights. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to moderate this session, and thank you to all of you for being a wonderful audience. Thank you very much, and we'll close the session. Thank you.